Your SIS is a checkbook.
Here, Mark, you had asked, you had pointed to somebody on your team in the back that something was happening this week. And I thought it was the attendance part.
Yeah, attendance transaction for this is happening.
So what do you want to go away?
We're hoping.
Explain a little bit what you're talking about.
I would need, who could talk that? Could you?
So is it that attendance is not going?
Or do I have it, if I don't, then let's not talk. Because I could get really deep technically and I'm not prepared for that. And I would need to sit there and have, I would want to have Satya standing here next to me so I could, and he's the architect that's doing this. That would be the fair thing for me to do because then I don't want to misquote you. But the first transaction we're doing is attendance. And I heard back there DOR. We took notes. We will continue to take notes. And we'll try to do them but it might not always be just the financial part. It might be what makes sense as far as the process. And I know you're looking at the numbers and I'm looking at how not to break. That's the tough one, right? And just so you know, there's another complexity I didn't talk about, but we're also doing, because for the next year, I still have to keep SD populated, even I got to move AZ's data into SD. So we're doing that in the background, because all our reporting to the states and feds is out of SD. It's not to ODS. So that's really complex when you delete and add records all the time. My database architect came to me and said, "Are you nuts?" Because it's tiny, right? But he's working. He said, "Are you nuts?" And I said, "Yes." And then move on. Sir.
I think one of the questions people are trying to get to is, if we have information in AZ right now going to states, are attendance transactions currently going through states today?
Not yet, until next week.
Okay, next week, everybody's going to start.
Yes. Correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So if we still have problems, then what?
Then you tell us.
Can I take it?
No, well, I would say that, I think we're testing it.
I would just say, we've had multiple attendance issues, so that's why I'm kind of sensitive to saying this is going to fix all of them, because we've had different types of issues where the AZ's data is out of sync with SACE. That is what's going in at the end of this week, and then we'll continue to roll out the other transactions through the month of May, and our target is to have all of them complete by the end of May.
And that's the best I can do right now without giving everybody a deep dive in technology. And then I'll get the guy in here to do that. But I think you want to shoot yourself when you're done. Because sometimes I do. I'm pretty deep. I'm an engineer. So.
Can I just ask them, on that note, when Red Flag sends a message out that you're going down?
Red flag is me.
Okay, when there's enhancements, we don't always know what those are. It just comes back up and we hope that things drop off, and that's good. But like you said, at the end of this week, the attendance will be implemented. Should we, when should we wait to call to say it didn't work, or it did work, and let you know? You say that you have to work on that process.
So why don't we get a couple of people that are really going to do this for us
Okay.
and work with ASCUS? We don't need 100. We need 3 people, 4 people that we could talk on the phone with and say, what did you think? And if you volunteer, please tell them. So 3 or 4 people that have got a big enough system that we think we got it. And we'll do that probably for every transaction.
That would be great.
So that gives us live, because even though we have UAT test and QA and prod, I have 4 environments. And I have the same thing in 6, which is hard to manage all this stuff. So I'd rather, because you miss something, right? And what did I say about attendance? You all do it different. And that's one of the challenges. But I can't fix that. I just want to get it to at least as good as we can get that. But the bigger ones is, the ones that really tight payment we want to get.
I want to clarify to make sure I know what to tell my school. So this onboarding process, on what you have on the screen is the schools that have not yet transitioned or have just started to transition, not the schools that transitioned.
That all the schools that have already, yes, yes. But those that have already transitioned, SACE 2.0 will work for you.
So that's what I need to tell my schools is that, I have several schools that are with half kids, and
This should, so you,
This should fix that problem.
yes, by the end of May.
So what they need to focus on now is make sure the integrity report in AZ is clear.
In AZEDS is right.
Okay, as long as that's clear, this should send all the missing data.
That's our goal. But if you want to be one of those people that come up here and make sure that we're right, I'd be glad to talk to you.
No, I just need to be able to clear, they're freaking out.
And that's what, I want everybody in this room, if I could bring enough Xanax for everybody here. You know, I would. Please take a breath. Everybody stand up and breathe. You know, like,
I need to read this.
you will get paid. We will fix the bugs. 2016 will be right. 2017 will be easier. If you keep that message running through your head when the school's calling you, because you imagine you have 5 schools calling you yelling at you. I get it. I have 650 LEAs, and every district, and every person saying that, you know. So understand that I feel your pain. Oh boy. At a level you don't know. But I just want everybody to calm. Please, let's get through it. June 1st, I mean, if we want to have a summer meeting, we can do a summer meeting. I'll do it, whatever you want to do. If we want to do a summer meeting in my building, I can fit people. How many can I fit in the 3rd floor? Can I fit this many? I think so.
Probably.
I think I can fit this many. 3rd floor? 3rd floor at Jefferson.
Like 311?
How many people are here? 240?
150 or something.
It'll be summer, they won't all.
Yeah,
right. Unless you put Xanax
Huh?
on the table.
Yeah,
exactly.
I didn't hear you.
Xanax.
Central's got enough room for this? Okay, well, if we have to because of space, we'll do, I mean, I know that this costs money and I don't want you to, if you need information, I want to be there. We're not trying to run away from this problem. I'm in front of it, head on. I just didn't want to leave here without you guys understanding that and calling school finance saying, oh my God, I want AZEDS to turn off. No, you're already on it. Let us get through it. But if you've not gone yet, this could be your process. Is that clear? Like mud.
Very much so. Thank you, Mark. Okay, we're going to move on to the next topic. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. Randall. It's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. So recently, I've always been talking about how stressful it is to move. Well, this last weekend, I actually finished my move, and I realized how stressful it truly is to move, especially when the project's going on. One of the things that it got me thinking about, though, is, from what I heard earlier, is how are you going to use AZEDS? So what we're going to talk about is mainly the reports. I'm going to pick one report and kind of walk you through how to use it. How many of you guys here actually have used Excel pivot tables? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. So we'll kind of walk through some of that. This may be redundant information for some of you, but I want to make sure that everybody understands the power of the pivot tables, and what we're trying to do is how we can set you up to use them. So next week, we're actually going to be releasing, we can go to the next slide, our system status page. So I think we walked through this before. We've got the REST API status up top. I think I heard a question earlier today is how do you know the status if if it's on and we're submitting or not? It's that green button up top. And it's available, and then when the system's down, it's red, so that means we can't accept data. The Intake 15 report, it says, check this right here. Make sure that it completed. If it hasn't completed, the report won't work. when we release the ADM 15 report, you're going to see this down here showing you the job. There's some different statuses. For example, it could be queued. It needs to be completed in order for the report to work. Because the way the data is going through the pipe so that we can show it to you, if there's a failure along the way, then the data is not reflected. And we don't want you actioning on that data, doing something if it's not correct. So we'll work to get it run. We'll use red flag for the communications. And then if it's complete, then you move on to reports. And then the other thing that we're going to be releasing is something new. It's the dashboard. It's the verification dashboard. And just to walk you through a little bit about this, this is just some of the high-level summary counts. So when you submit data and it lands in AZEDS, this shows the data, the counts of the records that we have that we're going to use to process your data. If, for example, you're this elementary school and you don't have any ELL programs or SPED programs, that means we didn't receive your data, so we didn't process or do anything with it. So if you see 0, then again, that data doesn't move on and process in the report. So this is just some of that reconciliation to say, hey, this is the transparency we've talked about. This is what we have, and then it moves on to the next step. And of course, if you want to see what these counts are, that's what the verification reports are. One of the new reports that we're going to be creating is the STUD 15. We're also going to be releasing the ADM 15. So a little designation about the 15 reports. They're more of a data dump that allows you then to use Excel pivot tables. So the STUD 15 is going to be the data that we received for students. It's taking all the student 10 reports, consolidating it into a larger report that you can export out and start looking at it. The ADM,
It's four of the 6.
4 of the 6. And then we'll have the integrity report that we'll use to review the rules. And then, of course, the ADM report will actually tell you what your ADM is. That's coming. And let me go through the reports real quick, and then I'll open it up for some report questions.
I'm just curious if you had an expected release date for the dashboard. Expected release date on the dashboard?
Next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're jump into, instead of spending any time more on slide, I figured we'd jump into Excel so we can actually show you how to do this. But before we do this, I'm going to ask you guys to do this exercise. And when I did it, it really opened my mind. How many of you guys know how to do a circle with your finger in clockwise rotation? Go ahead and do this. Do it above your eyes, above your head, and do the clockwise rotation. Now, as you bring the circle down, and you're still doing it, what direction is it going? Counterclockwise now. Nothing's changed other than the fact that you're looking at it differently. That's what pivot table services do for you. Is it allows you to look at your data differently. So what we did here is I ran an intake 15. I actually cleaned up all the data, but we ran an intake 15, and that's this tab. If you click up on the corner, and then you hit Insert Pivot Table, you get an instant pivot table. And data. Pivot table. And you get the pivot tables. So what I'm going to do is show you what some of the values of these fields are and talk through them a little bit. So we'll start with the first one, summary school severity. And what I did here is I put the severity column here. I picked the count of. So for those that are using pivot tables, you'll use counts. When you use ADM, you'll use sum. And then we put the school name up. And what this tells me is the number of students that we're going to count. If it's blank, it's moving on to ADM. If it's warning, it's moving on to ADM. If it's an error, the student stops, and we're not picking it up to calculate ADM. And you can see this by schools, which schools are actually having the errors in the warnings. Mark earlier talked about the attendance. We had some rules that were erroring out and was not moving on to ADM. So we changed them to warnings so that we can work on them and then get that through. So if you click on the next tab, in fact, I actually created this pivot table for that analysis. These were the actual errors that we're changing. And again, you can see which errors by which schools you're having problems with. So the Bob Barker Elementary School had 715 students that was not going to go on to ADM. And some of your other schools may not have this issue. So this is a way for you to look to see where are the errors happening. And again, the severity is error. Now there's another field. I'm looking.
What's the name?
It's, oh, there we go. Integrity type. Integrity type has a P and an F, pass and fail. So the students that pass are good. The students that are E are your errors and the warnings. So it's kind of like this drill down. It's kind of a two-step. I have to apologize for that, but that's kind of how you look at it. Or you can go directly to the severity and you know that the blank ones are moving forward. Another way to look at this is if you hit the third tab. This tells me what school, what are the errors within the school. Actually, I think I do severity or integrity type. Integrity type is state ELL. So if you want to click on that, you can toggle between accountability, attendance, membership, state, and SPED ELL. These are the types of rules that we have today. Attendance and membership and accountability, those are the ones that flow into your regular ADM. Your state ELL, those are your ELL ADMs. So we're just looking at ELL students right now. But yeah, you could just toggle around and start looking at your data. Then what I ended up doing is putting the state student ID here. So these are the actual students that are erroring out. So when you asked, are we trying to fix the big problems first? This is kind of how we looked at it so that we could start saying, what are the big problems? What are impacting most people? Those are the ones we're looking at first. One other thing that I noticed, the district student ID. This is an optional field for AZ, so not everybody submits this data. This is your SIS state ID, or I'm sorry, your SIS student ID. You can pass that along so that you can track it back to your student in the system. But if it's not being passed, then we don't have the data. And then of course, if you click on the last one, students with errors, I filtered on one student. This one student had 12 errors. And if you actually go to the pivot table, you could put the errors, if you scroll down, I'm not used to the Excel or Mac version of pivot tables. So you can either put the error code and get the number, and the value of putting the code in is it's short. But if you don't know the code, go ahead, Keith, and put the error description underneath the student right there. Now you know your errors that this student is failing on. And fact, that there could be multiple ones that they're failing on based on person's need. And how I did this is I filtered, go ahead and put the filter. I found the state student ID and I just put it in and I filtered on that. If you remove the filter, yeah, I'm not used to the Macintosh one. Clear the filter. Oh, there you go, clear filter. Here's all your students and the areas they're failing. Now the key is if you take that description out, you can actually filter and see which students are failing with just one errors or which students are failing with multiple. But again, the pivot table allows you to look at data however you want. This is a way for us to create one report that you can have multiple reports however you need it. So as we do this, again, we'll do this for the ADM 15 and the students to give you more power into that data and the analysis. One of the questions we've had is, is this useful? Did you guys know about this? Or to think about, this is how I should look at my data. So a lot of people, I'm seeing some head nods, so you guys know that yes and no. So we should continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Helpful for people that have multiple schools going twice with the same kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consider building the pivoting functionality into your reporting.
We've thought about different aspects of that, and that's one of those questions when it comes to money and time. I always look at it, let's get the base stuff out first, and then we've got, I would say, 2 to 3 more phases to do before we could do that, but that is some discussions we've had. In fact, this allows us then to build that out so we can do more of a statewide look at it, and we're looking at that, which we can then turn in. And the one thing I did want to review is what information would help you on this? Because as I did different pivot tables, would it be helpful to say, this is the question I'm trying to answer, and this is what the pivot table, the columns and the fields I use? Is that helpful? Okay, then we can look to put that together. Do you guys have any more questions? Because that was, I just wanted to make sure you guys understood this. Yes? This is based on the Integ 15. Actually, that is no longer in beta, I'm sorry. I guess that was a communication that didn't go out. It is available now. And we've been working on a lot of the performance enhancements. In fact, just recently, we've been able to stabilize the integrity job so that it would be running nightly. The reason we called it beta, just to clarify, the report always worked. But when you go back to that system status page that showed you whether it was up or down, that job was dependent. That was the part that we were stabilizing. And so when we first started, it took 60 hours to run that job. Now we're down to having it run within a few hours a night. So that's why we were saying it was beta. It was more about not the fact that the report was beta or the data was beta. It's just the consistency of us running that job. Yes.
So just to follow up on that, I'm staring at it right now. The label still says the report is in beta, so the label's just wrong.
We'll get that fixed.
Okay, great. And then I thought part of the reason it was in beta is that the rules were still being looked at, because there were failures that didn't seem to make any sense. So all that's cleaned up now?
So that the rules aspect of it, we did go through the review. We have a list of the rules that we're changing into the warnings, and that's also getting deployed. And when those are deployed, that's going to be more of what it's going to look like. But as part of AZEDS, these are the rules that we've implemented with the known rules that from the laws. We put those in. If you have questions on those, let us know. Because, like I said, when we saw we had a handful of the rules that we have to change from errors to warning, that's that part of the beta that could be.
And then just to follow up, I just want to be sure I'm really clear. part, we've been ignoring, I've been ignoring integrity in ATS. What I'm more interested in is my data getting over SACE and then SACE integrity. Could there be a situation where a student doesn't get to SACE because they're failing in ATS integrity? Or are we just moving raw data over, so the only integrity that really matters for right now is SACE integrity? It just got me.
So for the AZ, I've got to be careful because I don't have the details to answer that.
Okay.
But I can tell you the AZs to SACE 1.0 was moving the raw data over. Because some of the rules did change, that's why we didn't put it on the back end of that, because that could be the scenario. So, but part of the 2.0, I know, now that we know the rules, we can actually put some logic into the data movement, and I don't have the details on that.
So, just, if it becomes imperative that students are passing AZED's integrity while we're still in fiscal year 16, we'll just need to know that. We're operating under the assumption that that's not going to be.
Correct, I'm under the same assumption.
Can you
So
repeat
if
that
that
last,
changes, you'll let us know.
Yes,
what was
yes.
that last point?
The last point,
Yeah.
that, so the integrity in AZEDs, the data, the students that are running through that, as far as moving over into into SACE, it's not imperative that it passes AZED's integrity.
But in 2.0, it will.
I need to get clarification on that.
No.
No.
No, so, ASETS to SACE 2.0, we're looking at the data in ASETS. We're doing a compare of that data in SACE. And then any of those deltas or differences, we are either doing an update, a delete, or a change to a record. So that is a way that delta process will work. But we'll be looking at the data that's in ASETS before integrity.
Okay.
So in other words, the raw data in AZS.
ASETS.
Yes.
It's getting your data submitted to ASETS.
Any more questions? Yes.
Does that a district or charter holder level, and you get all the schools at once? The reason why I'm asking is I'm a multi-charter holder user, so I can't get this report for all my charter holders, or each charter holder individually.
It would be at the LEA district level, so if you're at, yeah. But there are ways you could work around it where, unfortunately, it's the multiple space it, and then you get the report.
Can we go back and just get clarification that says 2.0, so you're gonna do changes to the Delta priorities. Where? Who's the boss? AZ?
ASETS is the boss.
This is the
So that's why we're focused on making sure, I'll take, sorry. So let's take Chandler as an example for whether it's a new LEA onboarding or an existing LEA. So we are first looking at the data in ASETS. We are comparing it to the data in SACE. And where we see differences or deltas, we are identifying what has to happen. So let's say that there's a student in ASETS but not in SACE. We are going to then update SACE with those student details. If the student detail is different in ASETS than it is in SACE, we are going to make those updates for the differences into SACE. I'm sorry, what?
The differences will be made in SACE or SACE?
When the 2.0 version is available, so let's just say by end of May. So by June 1st, we will run a process that on a daily basis that compares ASETS to SACE. And where there are differences, and again, ASETS is the boss. That's an easy way to understand it. And if there's we don't see information in SACE that isn't AZ, we're gonna push that data through. And we are going to make, them SACE.
So when you say push data through, are you actually then uploading files that?
We are using the SACE, yes, transaction file process that, flows through into SACE, yes. Yes.
It's refined? I mean,